What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. I am here with my boy AlliedBlade. Go ahead and introduce yourself, bro.
Hey, what's up, everyone? AlliedBlade here. Nothing too much for intro, just over here enjoying Souls, want to have fun. I do make a little content here and there and whatnot, but pretty much, excited for the upcoming game, Lords of the Fallen, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So, Chosen, to kind of start things off, since you are more of the guru here, what is Lords of the Fallen? What's your overall take on it, your synopsis?
I wouldn't call myself a guru, but, I mean, let's pop this up real quick. Let's get this going. Now let's jump into the discussion. All right, so I originally played the first Lords of the Fallen a while ago, pretty much I think around 2015, 2014 is whenever I kind of started playing the game. I was intrigued because of the fact that it was the original Souls-like, which is also the reason why it got so much hate and harsh criticism early on, simply because there was no other Souls-likes at the time. But I will say this, in comparison versus what I'm seeing versus the old game versus the new, it's like a night and day improvement. What they were trying to go for on the original game was they were trying to go for like weighty, methodical kind of combat, similar to like DS2 in ways, not quite the same though. So there is that, and that's the whole reason why the game, I feel like, in itself was getting a lot of flack, was simply because it felt too slow and quote-unquote clunky. I'm all for realism, but at the same time, there's also a fine line between being real and putting it a little bit over the top with the animations and how slow they are, you know. And I feel like that was like the biggest issue with the game, and what everybody was really griping about was how slow everything was. Like literally all animations, roll, run, attack, parry, all of that. It seems like in the new game, the comparison is like a night and day performance. Like it just looks and feels like the new game looks and feels more similar to, like, I guess you would say Elden Ring, but again, I've not had hands-on gameplay, so I can't really say for sure that it feels completely like Elden Ring. Gotcha. But I would say it looks very similar to like DS3, kind of Bloodborne with the dashes, and similar to like Elden Ring in terms of like some aesthetics, except for in like a darker atmosphere.
I see. Nice.
And it feels like too hold on, sorry to cut you off. Also touching on like the build customization, from what I'm seeing, like the weapon variety is like definitely a huge thing in the new game. Like it looks like they really went all out with the weapon variety and the choices for selection of weapons. So it does not look like you're extremely limited like the old game. It also looks like you could make and create a shit ton of different builds, and basically they all perform and act differently from what I've seen. So that's like a direct comparison from the original game that I played and beat 4 times and comparing it to what we've been shown and allowed to see so far on the new game.
Gotcha. Cool. So I would say, kind of going off of that a little bit, what is our character? Because you know how in DS1 we're basically like the chosen undead, in DS2 we're the bearer of the curse. So, like, what are we? Are we like a warlord, demon? Like, what's kind of the main premise on that?
So,
I'm just curious.
to my knowledge, from what I know, I think all we are is like we're part of like this order that is pretty much fighting a deer, which is like the demon god of that universe.
Oh,
So like Adir was in the original game, and he was the big bad guy at the very end of the game. Uh, and he was pretty much the one that was calling in the forces and like the demons and all the fucking enemies that were coming through portals and what is it, Umbral? I believe it's called Umbral, which is where like the undead demons and whatnot kind of come from. Uh, so he's the one that pretty much started the invasion and whatnot on the first game, and you ended up beating him as Harkin, which is a pre-made character that was like a criminal, I guess, and was branded on his face with tattoos. But that's all that was given for his backstory as a character. As far as I know, in terms of like the new guys, like not new guys, but the new game and like what we are supposed to be is, I guess we're a part of the Holy Legion that's trying to fight Adir and push him back to Umbral.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we are. If I had to guess, I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha. Okay. So pretty much it has kind of that premise, where we have a big objective in mind. Ooh, hang on, let me repair. We have like a big objective in mind, and we're basically like just on a big quest like usual.
Yeah, we're pretty much trying to stop the end of the world. That's what we're trying to do initially. Because Adir
Gotcha.
is now back and trying to fucking, take over the world again.
Cool.
By the way,
All
I
right.
have no warrants.
Oh, all right. I guess we'll just continue. And really quick, how do you do that one jump attack? I keep forgetting. This has been a while since I
Jump
played. Yeah,
attack?
that.
Oh, it's
Yeah, that.
it's up and R2
Oh no,
at the
time's up.
same
All
time.
right. I swear I can't do it. All right. Anyway,
Oh,
speaking
you
of,
got disconnected.
yeah, time ran out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, speaking of jump attacks and going to mechanic, next we'll go into the co-ops. So here is or better yet, let me start off like this. As far as the co-op goes, the way I've seen it from what IGN has provided is basically we have the option to summon our friends, and we have, of course, the Umbral World. Now, if your partner does die, he basically stays in like an astral kind of projection until you revive him, kind of
Yeah.
like Wolong. So, what's your take on that, Chosen, as far as like compared to resummoning like other souls?
Compared to like, souls and having to resummon your buddy and whatnot.
Yeah.
See, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it because with Wolong, at least, okay, you have a time limit to pick your friends back up before they're gone. You know what I mean? Before they die.
Mm-hmm.
And also in Wolong it's weird too because like if you personally summon somebody with a password and you down any, doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter if it's the host or not. If you summon somebody with a password, if either one of you guys go down and you guys like the time limit like depletes fully, the invasion's over. Now it's not the case if you summon in randoms though, so that is weird. But in terms of what I saw with Lords of the Fallen's co-op system and people dying and just like their astral projection like is pretty much stuck where they died, and then you can come up as the host and interact with that and summon them back.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there needs to be a limit on how many times you could do that. I feel like if you could constantly just keep doing that repeatedly over and over, and especially if it has iframes, I can find that to be extremely annoying.
That's a very good point there. Gotcha. So I would say my take on it, especially when I compare to the other Souls games, I think allowing a person to have a chance to bring their friend back is totally fine. But I would agree with what you mentioned about making sure there's a limit to it. And I would probably think the devs made sure that was an option as far as the limitation, because as one thing you also pointed out, items are very scarce in this game, correct? As far as like
Yes.
checkpoints, I
At
believe.
least like so apparently like with the checkpoints like you were just about to say,
Hmm.
they're like seeds, I guess. And you have a very finite, limited amount of those. So like checkpoints are not like pretty much guaranteed or sprawled throughout the world. So you do have to kind of pick and choose when you want to use them and when you want to like make that area like a quote unquote bonfire.
Hmm.
And you also get them apparently, I guess, after you beat bosses. So right after you beat a boss, you can then drop one down in the boss room area. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's not like it's like, oh shit, I really got to watch myself whenever I use this, or I got to pick and choose where I can and can't fucking put this down or have it
Oh,
function.
sorry. Gotcha.
Um,
Okay, cool.
but yeah, as far as I know, it's a finite material. It's something that you get after you kill a boss. So after you kill a boss, I would assume it's better for you to just drop one down.
Hmm. Gotcha. So I would say another aspect in terms of co-op, because we know how games will, besides PvP, games will thrive off of having newer players come into the game. Do you think that mechanic, as far as resummoning, would keep people engaged, or would it be more of a turn-off, considering if they're, let's just say, for hypothetical, you can resummon your friend or pick them up one time, you can't pick them up again. Do you think it'll be a turn-off, or it'll be more inviting, in your opinion? What do you
I
think?
feel like it's going to be more inviting, at least in terms of the co-op aspect. You know what I mean? I feel like co-opers are going to love that.
Hmm.
Uh, like I said before, my biggest issue is because I'm an invader. I can see that being a issue for invaders. So oh, I tried.
That was nice, dude. So, and also, chosen, speaking of that, for invasions, so as of right now, it's noted there will be 2v1s. Has there been any major confirmation that there'll be more, or is it strictly just like 2v1s for the whole game, as far as we know?
As far as we know, it's supposed to be strictly 2v1s. There
Okay,
will be no co-invasions as far as I know as well, which, a lot of people I know are going to be bummed out about, which, that's like their main thing that they love is the fact that, they like to do co-invasions. I do too, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like that's a complete fucking, deal breaker for me.
yeah,
I mean, I would love to co-invade with my buddies or, some of the other streamers that are streaming. And if I just so happen to jump into their stream and if they need help, I do like to come and try to help out and whatnot. But, I don't think it's that big of an issue for me in terms of like how the systems, are going to work.
gotcha. Hmm. So I would probably say, at least with that aspect, that can go into our next topic here. So we know that, of course, like every Souls-like, there will be spells, um, items, consumables, but we'll stick it to with spells. So we know that there are three types, basically. And if I remember correctly, one is Umbral, one is Radiant, and the other is it Rogoth, I think?
Rogoth or something like that. It's pyromancy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So with what I've seen from our IGN and what they've mentioned, every single boss in the game has a spell that you can wield at some point. And
Yes. Like everything that you see in the game, like you see an enemy use that spell, you can use that spell.
gotcha, yeah.
Like nothing's off limits. So you see a boss do like a particular spell or whatever, more than likely at some point you will be able to get your hands on that spell.
Cool. And they also mentioned that the spells basically will be strong. And
Yeah,
from what I've seen, it looks like of all of them, the Umbral spells are probably the ones that will pack
you got
the
to be the
punch in terms
strongest.
of their
Yep,
creativity.
the
Because
way it looks.
yeah, they're like hexes from DS2 here.
Yeah, that's initially what it kind of looks like. You know what I mean? Because they didn't go that route with the pyromancy. At least that's what they're saying. You know.
Mm-hmm. Because basically it scales from both two of the stats. I'm
Yeah,
not really
two of the
can't remember
stats.
what they
So
were
like,
called.
it's like holy or something like that. I don't know. I don't even think they even gave us names for the stats yet. But they said that pretty much Umbral will be playing off of two of the attributes that are going to affect the other two spells. The other two fucking classes of spells.
Interesting. Yeah. So I would probably say, at least for me, from the ones that I've seen, I probably may go with either Radiant because I might use the healing spells, or I may try Umbral
Oh,
because with Umbral, there's one spell
I
from the
have
trailer that looks like
no
the.
warmth. I'm about to kill you.
Okay, fine, no problem. But yeah, it's like at least for me, I may do Umbral because there was one spell that kind of reminds me of the Moonlight Beams. You know, how I like the Moonlight. And one
I
cool
saw
thing
that.
chosen that I,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. But one cool thing chosen that I want to like mention is the developers confirmed that in every area, regardless of like which spells you choose or affinity, there's going to be some enemies that are like
Woo!
resistant to it, right?
Yes, like different
Yeah.
areas, there's going to be like certain enemies that are going to be completely resistant to certain spells. Certain trees of spells.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, like there's certain areas
Yes.
that are very strong against like umbral magics.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the pyromancy. There's certain areas that are completely
Oh,
lord,
GG.
GG's, good game.
But go ahead.
Yeah, there's certain areas that are very strong against pyromancies. Apparently, I guess there's like an early area that is very fire oriented. So like everything in that area is very resistant to pyromancies.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I would say as my overall input on that, I think that's a good thing because I look at it as it teaches a player not to have like what's that phrase, one shoe or like one size fits all type of
Fits
deal,
all. Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
yeah, because that's the one thing. And don't get me wrong, it's kind of like builds that are like physical builds, but I say physical is fine. But when it comes to spells, I would agree there should always be that one type of enemy or area that has that bit of
Right.
resistance to it. So then a player can't just like mow through area 1 and 2 and
Yep.
then like
Yep.
mow through 3. There has to be just that one that can kind of like give you a bit of pushback.
Yeah.
That adds a bit of what I would call thinking strategically or slow down, strategical planning. If that makes
There
sense.
you go. Yeah, yeah. No, and,
Yeah.
and you know what it also reminds me of? It reminds me of Demon Souls because like Demon Souls was like that. Like as soon as you've got access to the other Archstones, you can literally go anywhere, right? But here's the deal:
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you say you're rocking a mage setup, you could literally go to the Shrine of Storms right off the rip. But here's the deal: Shrine of Storms, like all the enemies there, are extremely resistant to magic damage. Even though that's where you
Mm-hmm.
need to go to get all your magic stuff, everything has high magic resistance. But the one thing I will say, and I want to touch on this right quick too, because we almost did forget about talking about this,
Yeah.
is when you said the spells are supposed to be are going to be strong in Lords of the Fallen, the dev
Yeah.
legit said that they will be strong. My issue with that is they've done apparently a good job on focusing on balancing out PVE for the spells, but I'm curious on whether or not they completely have it balanced out for PvP. How are the spells going to be in terms of damage output and whatnot in PvP? Now, obviously, it looks like we can't really just spam shit like you can in Elden Ring, or at least not as fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I do like that. That is a big improvement.
Gotcha. So, in your opinion, Chosen, would you say like strong spells could break the game in a sense, or would it just be like kind of either game breaking or just a bit where it's like kind of boring in your opinion
Oh shit.
for like strong spells?
Okay, put it this way. I wouldn't call it like boring.
Mm-hmm.
And like with PvE, I feel like, you know, using strong spells, as long as like not everything's just being completely like deleted by the spell, I think it's
Yeah.
fine. Because I feel like there should be a give and take in terms of spells. There should be like, you know, certain enemies or areas in which the spell itself does a lot more damage. And I feel like that's just a natural thing that should be implemented in any RPG, really.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of like PvP, that's a whole different story because like trying to get it right on PvP, like I can only imagine how hard it can be for devs to kind of balance out PvP whenever your game itself is not intentionally a PvP, straight PvP oriented game.
Right. Yeah, that's some very good points. I would say, at least from the ones that I've seen, like one particular spell that catches my interest is the Pyromancy. It's where you summon, I think, 3 or 4
Three
dogs that
dogs?
can. Yeah,
Yeah. That's
that look actually
sick.
kind of dope.
That looks sick.
Yeah,
Now I'm curious how the hell that's gonna work whenever you have an invader. Now, do they hunt him down? Because if that's the case, that's gonna. I don't know how I feel about that now. Obviously, I'm gonna feel, you know, great doing it to an invader that invades me, but I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel being on the receiving end of that. You know what I mean? With having a pack of fucking dogs, you know, essentially hunting me down. You know, I now feel
yeah,
like I'm now being turned into, instead of the predator, into like, you know, a fucking rabbit.
yeah.
Oh,
So, oh, so I would kind of say, at least with my main take, I think in terms of them balancing it around PvP, they will have to really see how it starts off because PvE will be, I feel, the main priority in terms of like making sure the game has its main popularity when it first comes
whew.
out. But maybe after we see how things go in the sales and so on, then maybe they'll put in some balancing, as you mentioned.
Oh, I
So,
definitely see them putting in some kind of balance patches. They're going to have to. Obviously, I don't feel like things are going to be completely balanced off the rip. Like nowadays, with how games are being developed and being like made, I don't see like games being completely 100%, you know, spot on as soon as they come out anymore. It's just not. It's just not a thing.
hmm
You know, I
yeah.
expect there to be bugs. I expect there to be issues. The main thing that I'm worried about is just how quickly they're going to address those bugs or issues. You know what I mean? That's what I'm
Yeah.
worried about. That's my gripe.
Well, I would say, at least with their responses, or at least with FromSoft and how it was with Elden Ring, maybe if they're the kind of developers who really care more, um, or really care about their community and listens, then we could get some patches quite soon, as they'll be needed. Because, like, as you said, there will be bugs, but I guess the best thing we can say is like time will tell.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh
actually landed
shit!
that.
Wow.
Nice. All right, Chosen. But with that in mind, considering there's invasions, the main thing I want to go into with that aspect is what we call the Umbral World. So,
Yeah.
if anyone hasn't seen the trailer, the Umbral World is
Oh my
basically
lord.
like the Umbral World is like the land of the dead, and you have this lantern that can allow you to see that world, and basically it's like the counterpart of the living. So
Yep.
the main difference is the terrain a little bit and some of the enemies you fight. But what makes it very chaotic is in the Umbral world, the enemies are,
Ooh.
I believe, a bit stronger. And
Yes,
as you
they
mentioned,
slowly get stronger too, and attack you more frequent as
yeah,
the longer you stay in there.
yeah, I was about to mention that. Yeah, what's your take on that, shows? And then, uh, besides your take, do you think they'll allow invaders to invade Umbral World, considering how dangerous it is? What do you think? And I'll give
My
my
thing.
input.
So what from this is just strictly my input because and this is not a guarantee. Okay, so I just want to make that clear to everybody. But my guess is that because you can invade people that have co-op, that you're only able to invade people that have co-op.
Hmm.
Um, the host and the cooperator can both go into Umbral. So I don't see, you know, Umbral not being an option for us to invade. I feel like Umbral is still an option for us to invade, and I feel like it's an even better change of
Hmm.
scenery for us as an invader because of the parameters that are set for that world in particular. By the way, I'm out of warrant.
Okay, gotcha.
So now we gotta try to kill each other now.
Yeah, but I go ahead and finish what you were saying.
No, that was all I was gonna say.
Okay. I would say my main take on it is my first impressions is I think it's actually quite cool because one thing chosen that if you remember from the video, if you hold your lantern out and
Yeah,
one of the umbrella enemies touch you, they can actually pull you into
pull
their
you in.
world.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that was really cool. I thought that was dope.
dude.
I thought that was
Like
sick.
it's like you have to make sure you're on your toes and be careful with like
Yeah.
what you're peeking into.
Yeah, because like if you're not careful, you could get pulled straight into Umbral, and now you're in a uh-oh moment. You know what I
GG.
mean? GG's, good
Hmm.
game. Yeah,
Yeah,
now you're
and
more
like
into like an uh-oh moment, like, oh no, now we're here. You know what I mean? Like, and there's only, I think, a select few ways to get out of Umbral. So as far as I know, and I could be wrong about this, but from what I know, is how you get out of Umbral is there's certain items that are in the world that are very very scarce and finite that allow you to come back into the world of living by using the item,
hmm.
or you have to actually beat the boss of that designated area in which you're going through, and you manage to end up, being an umbral in that specific area.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I would kind of say, like, with all that in mind, at least in my opinion, in terms of it, I feel like maybe to your point, if you are an Umbral and should you get invaded, I kind of feel if I had to pull on to the mechanic of like, let's say when you're Embered, maybe yes, but like if you're Emperor, like in the land of the living. But I would probably say if you are an Umbral, maybe like if you're invadable, as a cool feature, and maybe some could disagree with this, but like the chasm of the abyss in DS2. What if
Hmm.
like if someone invades you while you're an umbral, considering how strong they are? What if like the mobs, like some mobs, maybe attack everybody, considering like how strong they are in a sense? Like, what do you think about
Interesting.
that?
Interesting
Because
that you say
really,
that.
it makes me think of that.
Yeah, because
It really
I
does.
don't, from what I know, like nothing has been said about that, like at all. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
nothing has been touched on about that as an invader. Like you're going to be taking penalties if you invade Umbral. So I don't know if that is the case. I mean, at that point I don't know because it's all going to determine on like the enemies, how the enemies function, their what they have going for them, like their moves and things like that. Uh, Plus, it's going to also come down to not just like the moves, but the environment itself. You know what I mean? Like how many environmental
Yeah.
hazards are there in the area? Like, because certain things, like I'm all for, like say having a world, you know, aggro on the you as well as an invader, as long as it aggroes on the everybody. You know what I mean? Like as long as the
Hmm.
aggro is split somewhat evenly, I don't really have a problem with that. But again, the key factors that are going to come into place are going to be the environment itself and how many hazards there are going to be, and how
Hmm.
the enemies function and their move sets and things like that.
Right. Because one interesting point is I want to bring up in terms of Umbral is there was a segment in the video where they were fighting this captain type boss,
Yeah.
and they had to go into Umbral to actually weaken it. So I would say to go into at least like another topic that comes to mind. If if Umbral is essentially allowed to give bosses that kind of advantage, it really will probably make people think, as the dev said, should I stay in Land of the Living and fight, with tooth and nail, or should I risk, going to the Land of the Dead, making it easier, but also having another detriment,
Right.
you know? So like, I feel that can definitely again add a lot to that strategic thinking I mentioned earlier, but it really will make players, I feel, think what would be the best course of action if I want to get through this area, like brute strength or just plain or like basically using strategies and stuff like that. But like, what do you think
Oh damn, that R2 didn't get. Sorry, I was
though? Oh,
I
you're
was
fine.
focusing right there. I was really trying to get that parry. Uh, Sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So the question was, I was saying is that about that captain in the video, how
Okay,
you would have to go into Umbra World to actually weaken the captain.
right.
So it would make players think, should I stay in the land of the living or go on Umbral?
Okay, yeah. It's
And
like, do I want to
yeah,
deal with the penalties, or do I want to stay in the comfort of being in the land of the living? You know what I mean? Okay. I mean,
yeah.
I actually really like that aspect. I think it's cool, because that makes nice fucking parry.
Thank you. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do it.
Um,
But go ahead. Go ahead.
what's it called? I was talking. I forget where I was going. No, I like that aspect. I think it's a good way to interconnect like the world in other ways than just like, oh yeah, it just makes the game harder. You know what I mean? It does affect the
Hmm.
boss. It does affect like certain aspects of the game itself, not just like raises difficulty.
Right. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool too, because then in I'm not really sure if someone would do it though, but you know how there's always those handful of people that like to have a challenge. What if there's some
Probably do
person
an
that likes to
umbral
go into
run.
Umbral? Yeah, yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah, I
Like,
could see people doing umbral runs big time.
oh man.
I could definitely
And
see
dude,
people doing that.
and what if like the devs make an achievement for it, where you had to spend like I don't know a certain amount of time in Umbral and actually kill a few like secret bosses maybe?
Oh,
That'd
right.
be
No,
something.
I think that would be cool. I think if they did do that, it would make people like consider staying in Umbral a lot more. Now, obviously, I feel like people are still going to gripe about it and bitch about it, especially people that are like achievement hunters or whatever.
Nice.
So
Gotcha.
I do feel like people are going to complain about that and bitch about that. But I don't think that's a horrible idea. I feel like that's a
Right.
good way to you know get people to experience your game to the fullest.
Hmm. Yep. So then I would say with that in mind, that kind of makes me go into like the other topic about when we think of Lords of the Fallen and what it's all about in terms of what we've seen, we would kind of question how does it compare in terms of like with Elden Ring in terms of let's say maybe the way it functions, it's the way you approach it. If I were to start, I would say the one thing that Lords of the Fallen probably does different than what Elden Ring does is like I said before. And again, before I say this, for anyone to mention, this is solely my opinion, not fact, just how I feel about it.
Right.
Elden Ring is a fun game, and I do like it. But I feel, again, the whole open world aspect just doesn't work for Souls.
No,
Because Souls
and
has
I
always
agree.
had that linear formula, interconnection. Maybe there's a bit of like open world to it though, like DS2 in a sense, but not like Elden Rings, if that makes sense.
Right.
And to your
No.
point, there probably will be some people that may complain about Lords of the Fallen's open worldness per se, but I don't think it's going to be so big to where it takes like 3 hours to exaggerate to go through one area. You know what I'm saying?
No. I
Yeah.
wouldn't think that it would take 3 hours just to go through one area. I don't think it would. Um, from my knowledge, from what the dev was saying, is like the areas themselves are supposed to be big, but also linear. You know what I mean? They're
Hmm.
not meant to be just big open areas. Like you basically pick and choose which path you want to go down. You know what I mean? Um, and it's up to you at that point. You know, what do you want to do?
Hmm. So in that regards, do you think in terms of when we think of Souls-like, Lords of the Fallen's presentation has more of that Souls-like formula versus the most recent game?
Which game? Which most recent game?
Yeah, Elden Ring. My bad. Yeah,
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring.
Okay.
Like, would you agree it has like more of that Souls-like feel in terms of what we've seen so far? Oh, nice.
Nicely done.
GG.
GG's. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Yeah, I was just saying, with what we've seen so far with Lords of the Fallen, do you think it definitely has more of that Souls-like feel and formula versus like what kind of Elden Ring has presented so far?
I feel like this is gonna be like the more gritty, darker, more less handheld version of Elden Ring. That's what I feel like it's gonna be. Um, if I had to compare it to Elden Ring. I don't want to compare it to Elden Ring though. But there's going to be so many
Hmm.
people that are going to directly compare it to it, regardless. I mean, it has a lot of hype to live up to. So
Right.
people are instantly going to compare it to Elden Ring. Obviously, there's already from software fanboys that are already bashing the game itself before the game's even out, before they've even seen as much footage as has been shown so far. Um, I just feel like it's hit the nail on the head with the Souls like formula and whatnot, and it does a good job at standing out and giving its own flavor and its own character. So it has its own identity, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's not like
Hmm.
they're just directly trying to copy and paste, Souls. They're not trying to just specifically do that this time around. They are really trying to make this game their own thing, but also kind of keep it in the subgenre.
Right. Yeah, and I definitely would agree with how things are. At least like with what has been shown from the videos. Because again, to your point, you don't want to like make too much of a big comparison and whatnot. The only comparison like I would just say is that it's a Souls like,
Yeah.
and every
Yep.
Souls like does have that formula. So again, like with how things are, it definitely should kind of maintain with what we just mentioned about being linear, intertwined, and
Yeah.
I think it would also give a better experience because I remember um, we talked about Elden Ring, and you said how there are players who I think to this day still haven't beaten it because it's so big. Like
Yeah.
DS2 took me I think 44 hours to beat. Elden Ring I think took around roughly 60 to 70
Yep.
first time
Yep.
around.
Yep.
But
It
yeah.
was about 65 for me. No, I have.
Hmm.
I've talked to a few coworkers, and I think this was like, I don't know. This was a few months ago that I talked to a few of my coworkers that I basically discussed with them, why I don't play Elden Ring anymore. Because it's just I'm tired of From Software. You know what I mean? The fact that they haven't been delivering the way I initially thought that they would, and it's irritating because it's kind of like a sign of neglect and like they don't care.
Hmm.
At least that's how I'm seeing it, especially since all these other Souls-like devs are so quick to patch their games and get shit working and get things properly, fitted to where they should be. And From Software has really been dilly-dallying and just taking their sweet-ass time whenever it comes to Elden Ring. And, they didn't really do anything until people made a huge fuss about one particular patch. I think it was patch 1.08 or patch 1.09 or something like that. It was before patch 1.10. I know that. And everybody was in an uproar because all they did was fucking buff Radon again, which was so
I
dumb.
remember that.
It was so
I
dumb.
remember that.
Like, really, everybody was waiting for the next patch to come out, and everybody was getting their hopes up, like, yeah, the next patch is going to be a PvP patch, or it's going to be, a PvP-oriented patch. Nope. And that pissed everybody off. Yeah, I feel like as long as the devs are good at maintaining, their game and whatnot, things should be fine. And I feel like the game itself will do well.
So in that regards, I would say in terms of activity, like from before, I know that yes, there won't be any co-invasions. As far as we know, there'll be 2v1s. Do you think activity will be pretty maintained for Lords of the Fallen when it comes out, and so on and beyond?
I
The
do.
reason why, before you answer really quick, dude, because
Yeah,
the
go
reason
ahead.
why I say that, yeah, and for anyone else like who's wondering, Elden Ring basically came out, not even really 2 years ago exactly.
Oh, shit.
And it's kind of sad, like how when you look at those, at least those who I follow on Twitch and everything, most of them are playing, other games, which is fine. But it's just kind of sad, like how it's not even relatively on the solid point of 2 years old, and people are already kind of abandoning it. So yeah, that's sorry, go ahead. That's all I want to mention.
No, yeah, and what did you initially ask? Sorry.
I think I basically said that. I was just saying it's just kind of like sad, like how it's going down. I was basically
Well, right.
asking,
I know what you said
yes,
about Elden Ring, but I was initially, what was the question?
yeah. The question was, how do you think activity will be in terms
Oh,
of
okay.
the 2v1 aspect, even though there's no co-invasions or anything? How do you
Right.
think the activity will be for Lords and beyond for this new iteration of the game?
So
Yeah.
my answer on that, I feel like, and this is just strictly a guess, because obviously I can't tell how well the game's going to do, and how well it's going to be, how active it's going to be after release. But simply because it has seamless co-op at the very fucking beginning of the game, I feel like that is going to get people to play the game more and more and more, and keep the game alive. Now now here's my thing. I'm curious as to how early in the game can we invade, and what is it that we need to invade. You know what I mean? Because none of these things have been addressed or talked about. So these are
Right.
things that we just don't know as of right now, where the game stands, and we're about a month away from the release. We don't know how those things are going to work, or if they're going to be implemented at all. We have no idea. We're very very small in terms of like the information that we've been given. We've been given very little information. But in terms of
I
like the
gotcha.
game's longevity, I don't see why it will not keep people interested and keep people playing for a long period of time, simply because of the fact that you could do seamless co-op from start to finish.
Right. Yeah, those are some pretty good points, and I do agree with them. But to your point, though, we'll have to really see like how things are when the game does come out, because one thing is for certain, or not for certain, I should say. One thing we don't know for certain is what if there may be DLC to this? Like
Yep.
it's a new version of the game. Maybe they'll want to expand it versus like the counterpart from the original.
Well, they originally had on the first Lords of the Fallen, they did drop a DLC for it. Now, was it a great DLC? It was mediocre. It was very short. Do I think it was worth $10? Not necessarily. I felt like it was more of a cash grab. And again, these are like just the negatives that the the devs have been facing since the first original game. And this is why certain people are very skeptic about the new Lords of the Fallen and like how things are going to be. You know what I mean? Nice.
Gotcha. GG.
GG's, bro. Good game.
But you were saying?
No, that was it. That was the end of what I was saying.
Gotcha. But yeah, mainly we'll just have to really see like how things go when it does come out and whatnot. But I would say overall chosen, at least with what I've gathered from the videos. But the main thing is I'll mention though, I didn't watch all of them because I want to avoid certain spoilers
Right.
and everything. But overall, I think the game does have good promise, and I won't sit here and say it's going to exactly replace ER per se, because again, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. But
Right.
I'll definitely say it can be a what some may call a good competitor to Elden Ring, because I think some have said that if they can do things like some aspects better than ER, then maybe FromSoft could be tempted to, I guess, do some things better. Maybe, I don't know.
So to touch on that, what you just said, I feel like From Software has been in this little pool of theirs for far too long, and they haven't had really any competitive action or competition. So I feel like CI Games and Hexworks Studios pretty much is bringing something to the table to kind of, put From Software on edge, and also kind of to keep them in check, to be like, look, dude, if you guys don't pay attention to your community, if you guys don't pay attention to your fan base and listen to them and shit like that, they could potentially go elsewhere.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people I know are very discouraged and or pissed off with the way From Software has been doing, taking care of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. You know what I mean? Like I do feel a type of way whenever it comes to Elden Ring. I feel like there was so much potential with the game, and there was so much that the game itself could have done, and it could have really been something. Ah, wow! I wasted my buff. It could have been something that was better than what initially, dropped.
Hmm.
And yeah, all I can say is just that it just feels like a missed opportunity. Nice parry.
Thank you. Yeah, and the thing is, though, I feel like with any game out there, even if it may have a rough start, it can always improve. And I won't sit here and say that Lords of the Fallen would be like the most perfect, because as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be some bugs, there may be some balancing, and maybe there could be some minor gameplay stuff. Who knows? But but the main thing I'm sure we'll agree on is that as long as the devs listen to the fan base and see what the issues are that they bring up and fix them, the game can thrive for very long. I think one of the best games to me that probably had good, this is my opinion, that had like good attention was Destiny 1. And the only reason
Yeah.
why I say that just briefly is because Destiny 1, because I was there on day one, started kind of iffy. It did. But Bungie listened to the fans, and literally they improved it so well that, in my opinion, Destiny 2 didn't need to exist at the time it did. I'm being serious. And some
Yeah.
can disagree with me there, but legit, Destiny 1 is a good example of a game where the developers listened, made good changes, and it got better. So yeah, Lords of the Fallen can definitely have that quality. It can.
Right. It just depends on how willing the developers are going to be to listen to feedback.
Hmm.
If they don't want to listen to feedback, because apparently Bungie now, at least I don't know, I don't really listen, I don't really play Destiny or anything like that, but I have heard other people in the past tell me that Bungie pretty much recently, probably about a year or so ago, they were not listening to the fan base, and it was pissing a lot of people off.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Hmm. I think like it was I don't know if it was the most recent patch too, but yeah, recently I saw something like that. That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's like it just it all just depends on the devs. It like I hate whenever the devs get so snobby or feel like, oh no, this is how it's supposed to be, or this is what we want. Like, but this isn't what your audience, your community, your fan base wants. You know what I mean? Shouldn't you be, at least somewhat catering to, the people that are, you know, a part of your community? You would think,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And that's the thing that kind of sucks about it, though. Like I said, Destiny 1 to me became such a gem, and it's just like kind of sad how like Destiny 2 to me was another example of how it started good but kind of like fallen from grace, if that makes sense. Because it's like there were a few aspects I did like of Destiny 2, but I would say over time there was more I hated than liked, to be honest. That I feel they could have either taken from the first one or improved upon it. Because like any game, dude, if you're gonna make another one, the second, third, fourth, fifth have to either be just as good or better
Or
than last. You
better.
know what I'm saying?
Yep. Or
Like
better.
movies, basically.
Yep.
So with Lords of the Fallen here, even though it's not technically a number two, it is more or less like a remaster kind of remake thing in a
Yeah,
sense, right?
that's what it is. It's like a revamp, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say with what happened in the original, they could definitely improve upon them. So then this game can have like a better type of flavor. Ah, over that theory.
Nice parry. But yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. As long as the devs are willing to play ball and they listen to their community and whatnot, I feel like Lords of the Fallen has a huge potential to go far and also to be, to keep its activity for the longevity.
Yeah.
And I know some people may not care about longevity in these games or whatever because they're like, oh, I'm just going to jump on the next new game whenever they make it or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't care, about jumping on necessarily the next new game per se. I mean, yeah, I am looking forward to new projects, new games to try out and whatnot. But at the same time, it's like, why would I, want to necessarily completely put down a game that I love? You
Yeah,
know,
I
like
agree there.
like DS2 for instance, like what we're playing right now. The game's like what, almost 10 years old, almost a decade. Scholar is like, geez, dude, like, and we're still playing this.
Oh yeah. Because like
And a lot
to
of people
me,
still love this
go
game.
ahead. Sorry.
That's all I
Definitely.
was gonna say.
But yeah, and sorry about that. But yeah, it's like DS2 to me is an example of one of those games where, and I'll just say like how it is honestly, it's going to have its hate because it's not the kind that essentially will hold your hand.
Yeah.
But if you take the time to dissect it, especially with the PvP, and then more so with the equipment, the weapons, DS2 has so much variety. There's a
Oh,
lot of
big
things you
time.
can do with
Yeah. Nice parry.
it.
Damn.
Thanks, man. But go ahead though. Yeah.
Nah, that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, and then I feel like maybe Lords could have that aspect though. And just to mention, a game doesn't need to have like 10,000 things to make it good though. But what it needs to have is uniqueness. Think of this, Bloodborne. It has like the least amount of weapons, but it has what? The trick system with the weapons. Dude, trick weapons are so freaking cool.
Oh, I
I
love the trick
love
weapons in
Bloodborne because of
Bloodborne.
that.
Yeah, that's the whole
Yeah.
reason why I love Bloodborne was simply because of that system in particular. I've never played a game that was like that before From Software made, Bloodborne.
Yeah. So it's like it just goes to show you don't have to have a lot of quantity to have good quality. Because really, the way it's supposed to be is quality over quantity. Bloodborne doesn't have a lot of weapons. It doesn't. But the way they work and how it operates in the game, with the trick system, the Quicksilver bullets, Bloodborne is a really solid game. A horror game, in my opinion. GG.
Oh, GG's, good
That was
game.
nice. That was really good.
GG's. Yeah, yeah, with the horror element and the aspect of it, I love Bloodborne, man. Everything about it, love that game. That's one of my all-time favorites. You know what I mean? Same with DS2, but it's like, will Lords like live up to that? Only time will kind of tell. You know what I mean? From
Yeah.
what I'm seeing in terms of like the variety and everything on the build making and whatnot, and what you're able to do and customize and all that. that I feel like I'm going to be right at home. It's going to be a game that I'm going to put and invest a lot of time into, simply
Mm-hmm.
because I like to make builds and I like to experiment. I like to change shit up. I like to do things on my own. And I don't necessarily like to just hop on the quote unquote meta. You know what I mean? I like to check shit out
Yeah.
myself, and I like to see what I particularly like to use.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's how I would say it should be for players. And the thing is to say really quick, I'm not saying a person shouldn't be inspired by somebody else. No, inspiration goes a long way. But
Yeah,
yeah, I would definitely agree though, especially if you're an invader, try to like mix things up and use things you like versus seeing like the most overpowered build. Because I assure you, do when Lords does come out,
there's
and
gonna be
again,
cookie
I'll
cutter
say
shit coming out.
yes,
Obviously,
yes.
bro. There's gonna be cookie cutter fucking builds. That's all. Obviously, it's gonna happen. It's been happening the past like 10, pretty much the past decade. OP build this, OP build that, or how to be broken in this game. And it's like it gets old.
Yep, but it's definitely one of the things that does keep people's attention, which I can understand. But yeah, I kind of do like it more when people do their own thing versus like just cookie cutter. But again, I'm not saying someone can't do that because she can. By
Yeah.
all means, someone can. But
I
at the
mean,
same time,
it's
though,
your choice
it's
if you
like,
want to, but like I don't, because it's not that fun. Like, how am I going to get satisfaction from knowing that I'm using somebody else's setup, getting W's, getting the percent win percentage that I'm getting or whatever on people, all because I just followed this one person's build to a T, and I never changed it up. I never tried to check shit out for myself. I never tried to do anything else besides that particular build.
mm-hmm, yeah. I kind of would say the first thing I would expect when it comes out is, besides cookie cutters, I wonder if someone is going to like figure out how to do like, besides those, is
Swaps.
maybe swaps, but also probably exploits and everything.
Yep, yep.
Because I
No,
feel like
there's
every
a
game is
bunch
going to
there's a
have it.
bunch of fucking players these days. These kids, that's what they do. It's like there's specific players. That's all they care for, and that's all what they try to do is go for and try to figure out all the exploits, how to break the game. That's what they like to do. I particularly don't care for that. I don't. I mean, if the game is strictly PVE, that's one thing. But whenever there's a PvP element in it, that's whenever I have a problem, because that exploit that you probably are using is more than likely completely fucking broken in PvP if it's not already broken in PvE.
Do you think it's a possibility that some people, and just throwing out there, it's a kind of spitballing, but you think some people intentionally do that to bring it to the attention of the devs, or just to
No,
break
no.
it?
Put it this way, I feel like some people are like, oh, I'm doing my job, I'm bringing it to the attention of the no, no. What I think they're doing is they're doing it on purpose. They like to break the game, which is fine. That's fine. But don't try to sugarcoat it and be like, oh yeah, I'm doing my part, as a person in the community. Like, no, you're fucking not. Like, I don't see it like that whatsoever. I see it as, especially if you continue to use it. It's one thing if you put up a video or whatever showing the exploit and showing how to deal with it and everything else, kind of like what Scorch Knight did on the Gatling gun shit on Bloodborne. But it's a whole nother thing where like you're just gonna find this exploit and then you just abuse the absolute shit out of it all the time, and that's all you do. That's a completely different person. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Hmm.
feel like most players fall into that category where they are just trying to break the game itself, which again is fine, but don't try to sugarcoat it.
Right. Well, I would say, at least with that in mind, in terms of lords, again, we'll have to see how things go when it does come out. But if there are those exploits that I'm sure will come out, I definitely would hope the developers, fix them so then they don't become an issue like how, with all due respect, DS3 became near the end of its life. Well,
Yep.
it's not dead per se, but near the end of its like popular lifestyle
Yep.
and everything.
Oh, that's the reason why I put DS3 down altogether, was because of the glitches, the exploits.
Yep. Yep. I don't want Lord
oh
to
my
essentially fall into
god!
that trap. Nice. But yeah, it's like I don't want Lords to fall into that trap and everything, especially with like what they presented.
I feel like like I said, I don't think Hexworks is going to allow that, or CI Games. I feel like they're banking on this to do too well, so I feel like they're going to be pretty on top of patching their game and whatnot, and making sure that shit gets taken care of. Just so that way they can make another similar game in the future. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they're banking on this. Whoa. That was a little weird. A little skippy. Alright, I got one more warmth.
Alright. Got another heal on me. But yeah, all in all, I think that, again, we'll just say it, time will tell, and we'll just see like how things go for it.
Yeah. Is there like one last question you want to kind of discuss or go over?
Let me see. If there is probably one thing I would go over, I think probably it would be to, I guess, keep it simple, how maybe the PvE will be. So like a good example is when we first saw the intro cutscene, or not cutscene, the fight. We were fighting that boss using the wings and all those swords and everything, I believe.
Yeah.
And of course, the character went to the Umbral form and everything. I guess maybe one thing I just wonder is, how are the bosses going to be interacting with us? Is it going to be like before, where let's say if there's 2 players, will they change their play style? Can they handle 2 players?
Interesting.
Or is it going to be like just
or is it
the whole
they gotta break the AI with the 2 players?
Yeah, and then also to really quick to mention that, will there be over levels? That's one thing.
Oh yes,
that's a good question. I say that's a good one to talk about.
Yeah, because as far as I know, nothing's been talked about with the password matchmaking or anything like that. There's nothing that's been discussed about anything like that. You know what I mean? So I don't know what they're gonna do with that. It's going to be interesting. All I can say is, I hope they properly balance, over levels.
Yeah. If there is a password, or will they go like actually chosen as one question, in the original, was there passwords, or was like the...
There was no co-op in the original.
Oh.
At all. Yeah, it was a strictly one-person game. Nice. You tried.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a single player game, no co-op, no online functionality whatsoever.
Gotcha. So I would kind of say at least
hey, GG,
I was about to
get you on that one. GG's, good game.
That was good. But yeah, I would say my take on it is this: do I hate password summons? No. Do I think password summons breaks a game or anything? No. It's only if you have
a person to a certain
level
extent.
To exaggerate 10,000 to nuke the boss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's the reason why I said, I kind of interrupted you a little bit right there, but I was like, to a certain extent, I do feel like they break the game. Because if you're level 30 and you're you summon in a level 800, 900, and if the game's not properly, nerfing that dude that's that high level, yeah, that could be a big fucking issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it be PvE or dealing with invaders, either or. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of having or allowing players their super strong over level buddy just doing everything for them. You know what I mean? I'm not that type of person, so I I can't agree with that, and I don't sympathize with anybody who likes that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I guess that also boils down to like kind of somewhat my background too. I'm a very independent type of person, and I come from a very rough background. So literally, like everything that I've had to get or obtain in life is literally from me, from my time, my effort, everything else, not getting a handout.
Gotcha.
So that's the reason why I
Yeah,
feel that type of way about that.
yeah, and I totally hear where you're coming from, dude. It's like I would just say my overall intake on it, even from like let's say DS3, I am never against a person summoning for help and everything, even if they're overleveled. My only thing is this is what I would say, let your overlevels be like NPCs, where
Yeah.
they follow you and you lead them. Because it allows you to kind of learn the game so you can understand how a mob works, what to avoid, what to expect and something like that. Because again, I get it, y'all
Woo!
need help.
Good shit.
I am thanks. Like I am never ever against help, but I definitely would say you
No,
should be
I'm
the
not
leader,
either.
pretty much. You show them what to do, and then they can just support you. But that's just me, though.
Right. But I mean, to
Yeah.
each their own. Everybody can play however it is that they want. You know what I mean? So it's like if you
Yeah,
want to summon in your
exactly.
overlevel buddy and do all that shit, and have him just fucking basically play
Nice.
the game for you, go for it. That's if that's your preference, cool. I'm just saying I will never do that, and that's how I feel about it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I feel very strongly about that, and I will never let somebody just play a game for me.
Yeah,
No matter
I hear
how
you there.
hard or challenging the game is, I will eventually learn and figure out how to play the game or beat it.
Yeah. So I would say maybe chosen as like kind of to maybe put things near the end with what we just mentioned and how invasions are in this game. Do you think a lot of players will play solo on the first day, or will there be more co-op?
I think there's going
What
to
do you
be more
think?
co-op simply because people are going to be able to just fucking, queue up with their buddies right off the rip.
Hmm.
So it's like the fact that you could do that right at pretty much the beginning of the game. I mean, that's a big thing for PVE players and cooperators.
So do you need like a summoning
Oh
sign?
shit,
Oh, never mind.
GG's, good
You're
game.
fine. So is like a summoning sign or like a summoning kind of like talisman you need to do it? Because I would think there is, right?
See, nothing has been said about that as far as I know. Even on the video, like the 20-minute video of like the co-op, they never discussed that. They never discussed how to connect with somebody or anything. They were instantly just connected, and that's where like the video started. You know what I mean?
I see. Good point. If I had to guess, chosen, my input would be is think of like DS1 after you kill Edict's Gundyr and you get to
Yeah, the
the
Fire Link.
Firelink Shrine. I bet you'll be able to buy the summoning talisman, whatever it is, the second you get there. That'd be my
Right.
guess.
Yeah, I would assume so too. I wonder how they're going to start the game off. I mean, literally, you can go see how the game starts. They have the first 13 minutes of gameplay on IGN, and I also have it in my Discord, like the actual link for that specific video in my Discord as well. But
Hmm.
I started watching it, and then I thought about it. I was like, wait, if this is the first 13 minutes of gameplay, I do not want to spoil this for myself.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So I started watching it, and then like all I'm gonna say is this: I got Bloodborne vibes off the rip at the very beginning. That's all I'm gonna
Nice.
say. With how the game started, it basically felt similar to Bloodborne. That's all I can say from what I saw, which was like about a minute or two. And then I stopped. I was like, nope, I can't do this. I don't want to spoil it for myself. I don't want to, you know, see more than what I already have seen.
Yeah, I hear you there.
But I mean, unless you have something else to talk about or another point to kind of discuss,
I would
I'm
kind of say just to finish off what I mentioned about the about playing solo or with a friend. I
Hmm.
would agree with you that most would probably play with a friend, but
Yeah.
there's going to be the handful that plays solo. I'll definitely go in solo for the first time because after getting into Souls from back in the day, I kind of take it upon myself to go through the game first, see what I can learn and so on, doing it on my own so I can have that better
Right.
like grip of the game, and then maybe for like a future playthrough, I could do like a Tantra tongue run to make it up, and then play with a friend.
Right.
So just to confirm, Chosen, will you play solo or are you gonna play with somebody? Just to be sure.
So,
I'm
all
just
right. So
curious.
my first initial time playing the game, I'm gonna more than likely be doing a co-op playthrough with Mike from Dark Souls Builds and Cosplay right off the rip. That's kind of like
Hmm.
what me and him intentionally like planned on doing initially. So
Gotcha.
I think that's what we're gonna do. I think that's still on the table. I think that's what we're still aiming for, and we're probably more than likely gonna stream it, or at least I plan on to.
Hmm.
Um, Now, will I go through the game by myself? More than likely, I'll go through the game by myself and, probably record that as well just to have that footage with a different build, of course.
Right.
Obviously, it won't be my first playthrough, but I do plan on, grabbing the footage for me and Mike's, co-op playthrough when the game finally comes out.
Hmm.
So I'll be doing that, and then I'll more than likely do a solo run afterwards by myself, and more than likely get that footage as well.
Okay. I gotcha.
But yeah, me and Mike were talking about it. We kind of wanted to get invaded and see how it would be, to be invaded first
Hmm.
instead of being the ones to do the invasions.
I hear you there. I hear you.
And also it kind of gets people to interact with us and kind of uh,
Yeah.
I guess invade us, especially since we're streaming it.
Hmm.
So it
Oh, dude,
gets
you just
the chat
reminded. Oh,
interacted with us.
yes, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah. Actually, dude, you just reminded me of one last thing. Because of like for the invasions, I wonder how we're going to get the tool. Because like in every game there usually
Right.
has to be some sort of like NPC invasion or actual co-op. I really or invasion itself, like with the pale tongues you had to collect for DS3. I wonder how lords may do that. We need to go on Umbra World to get the invasion tool. We need to like kill a boss. Like I'm really curious as to how we'll get it because like I missed it in Elden Ring sadly, like the Rikusen finger.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really curious to see how it's going to be for that aspect.
So all I can say about that, or touch on that, is that I don't know. Nicely done. I don't know if there's going to be any items or anything that's going to be required to invade. I don't know how things are going to be, you know what I mean? All I do
Hmm.
know is just that apparently, at least from what the dev said on the whole co-op playthrough, is that there are specific areas that are more prone to be invaded by PvP players than others. So like
Right.
there's like hot spots pretty much for invaders.
Okay, I see. That makes sense because every game, every Souls game has that hotspot. Like DS1 had the DLC in the forest. DS2 has actually chosen what's the hotspot in DS2? I never really thought about it because you can go almost anywhere
DS2.
here. Yeah.
The what is it? The bridge, Iron Keep Bridge.
Oh yeah, Iron Keep, duh.
Iron
Right.
Keep is a hot spot. It always has been
Yep.
ever since the game
And
came out.
yeah, and DS3 was always the swamp and King City is what we call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, other than that, Chosen, I don't think I have anything else to talk about because I just mainly want to like touch on mainly how things would be on day one and what we'll do.
Okay.
So I would say at this point you want to open things up to any questions some may have, or how do you want to like wrap things up here?
Yeah, we can pretty much just open it up to questions now, especially since. Well, actually, you know what? Whenever we get done with this this fight because I want to kind of end the video here on a fight. On the end of it, I'm gonna get you. Yep.
Nice. Hey, GG.
GG's, bro.
I'm so rusty.
Good game. Nicely done. Hell yeah.